Hi, everyone. It's Dominic from the msguy.com. And today I'm joined by a good friend of mine who I met through an amazing charity, Shift.ms. His name is Mark. And we're going to talk about something very interesting. And that's going to start for you right now. Hi, everybody. Mark, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Hi, so thanks I'm going to plug Shift.ms again, fantastic charity and a community that really got me into being in a community.
Likewise.
I'm Mark. I was diagnosed in 2007 with a pesky disease called MS. And I can date back the first symptoms since 1992. I'm now advanced and progressive.
Okay. Mark and I are going to talk about something now. We're going to talk about erections, and I do not mean buildings. It's a fact that MS affects gentlemen, particularly. We can use all the euphemisms you like. You cannot get an erection for sex sometimes, and that's what we're going to talk about. Let's go. He made me laugh my head off the other day when he was telling me a story, but I'm not going to do it justice. So, Mark, I'm going to turn it over to you initially to tell us about how you discovered that this was an issue.
Yeah, so I was in my 20s when everything MS started to sort of flirt with my life. Pins and needles, or nails and needles, I called it, because it was so intense for about 3 days. But it went away, and I was a bloke, so I ignored it. Then bladder issues, but living in France, this was the 90s, and therefore I could pee in gateposts and behind trees and doorways, and it was thoroughly acceptable behavior. I'm sure my French friends have cleaned the world up now. Again, I ignored it, and I kind of thought it was a sort of secret part of men's life that they sometimes piss themselves. But hey, and we just didn't talk about it. So I didn't talk about it and started wearing black trousers. But
who's going to volunteer as a bloke? You're not going to volunteer. You don't sit in the pub and say, by the way, lads, I'm wetting myself occasionally. Doesn't happen.
No, absolutely. So I moved on and ignored it and got on with life, blamed it on wine and coffee and some kind of secret society of men. But then something that really worried started happening, which was floppy willy, as in failing to deliver. And back to this, I was a man in my 20s, in my prime. I'd been a holiday rep. I was working at Disneyland Paris. I was having the time of my life, looking after all these major celebrities, chasing girls, occasionally being chased by girls. And all of a sudden, it wasn't happening down there. And that was serious enough for me to go to a doctor.
It's priorities. It's priorities. If you're letting down ladies, it suddenly becomes a priority.
You have to fess up there. I was, of course, sent to a specialist. He was in central Paris. I lived outside Paris. It was about an hour's drive, which will become relevant later in the story. The blue pill was on the verge of being invented, but it hadn't been invented. So at the time, you used something called Cavaject, which was an injection straight into your willy. So that was the first tough bit. So I went to a dusty old consultation room and was injected into my willy. And even before I left the room, because I was sent away to say, see how it goes, even before I left the room.
Mark, were you sent away with a handful of pornography to sort of just test the functioning?
I did not need that. I had a girlfriend 1 hour away in the car.
Oh, okay, I see. So you thought you would field test it at home.
And in the meantime, I started to develop an erection the size of the gear stick that was in my car. It was a stonker, is probably the technical word. But an hour's later drive, and I still had this enormous erection. And by the time I got to see my beautiful girlfriend, I had no interest in anybody touching said implement. And I just sat there on the sofa with this this awkward thing between my legs that just wasn't exciting, but was certainly erect. It got worse and more painful. And perhaps half an hour later, I called the same specialist up and said, look, this is painful and serious. And what do I do? And I had to drive back in, and I had to have a cannula inserted into my penis to take blood off. And
can I just stop you? In case anybody doesn't know, the way you get an erection is essentially like a sponge, your penis, and the blood gets pumped in and it hardens up. So what you're describing, I mean, I'm sitting here sort of shifting from bum cheek to bum cheek, thinking this, oh.
But I looked at all the blood draining out into a whatever receptacle. And it was a horrible sensation. But the conclusion was, and the specialist said, don't worry then, it's all in your head. Go and sort yourself out. Which, of course, in a sense, it was all in my head, just not in the MS sense. Fortunately, life moved on because the blue pill came along. I just got a bit less romantic. It was, hey, babe, fancy it? Okay, see you in an hour. And that's how life changed. So I was a little bit less of a floozy, or had to be a bit more patient, or ask beautiful girls to be more patient. I carried on delivering just slow motion with girls, and nothing happened for years. And I'm sure you've talked to other people about how they were diagnosed eventually, but that really stayed my sort of two symptoms, bladder and erectile dysfunction for so long.
Right.
But I never put the dots together.
Well, why would you? I mean, so many people have said so many things to me, and it's all about ultimately, I didn't put the dots together. But who on earth goes, could be MS, can't pee, can't get an erection, must have a lifelong debilitating illness. I'll toddle off to the neuro. That doesn't happen.
No. And back to that, I remember convincing myself I must have had a minor stroke with those pins and needles, which of course you should rather go to a doctor if you're having a stroke, shouldn't you? But and the other two, like I said, I thought the weeing was some kind of secret handshake among men that we didn't talk about. And the erections, I put it down to me being a complete floozy and feeling guilty. That I was never a good boy. So I had all these logical explanations to cover off my bits and bobs. And so I went roughly 15 years before anything else developed, and before I was diagnosed.
If you've got MS, especially if you're newly diagnosed and you're having problems, because who doesn't like having sex when they want to have it? If you can't all of a sudden, what would you say to somebody if you could go back and talk to somebody who's newly diagnosed and they actually said, gee, Mark, it's really troubling me. I can't get an erection. I would love to have sex with my wife, my girlfriend, my boyfriend. I don't care, but I can't. What should I do?
Well, for me, it was something of a passion of mine in my 20s, a career drive. I'm doing.
I was a ski instructor for a while. I'm similar sort of career drives at that time.
Erectile dysfunction does not mean you've got MS.
No.
MS doesn't mean you're going to get erectile dysfunction.
No.
But with the blue pill and other quicker acting drugs now than the famous one that came first, it can be looked after. And intimacy is a hugely important part of most people's lives, or well, I feel like it should be, and it certainly was for me. It was massively important to do it, and it's just another stigma to overcome. Dom, I know you know my blog is called onemaniscatheters.com. I wasn't proud that I couldn't get a stiffy, but thanks to getting stiffies, I later, with my wonderful wife, we had 2 children. That was because I tackled that issue, at least, even if I was crap with the others.
You say the blue pill, just for clarity, it's Viagra. And then the one I know at least one more that's newer that I've had the opportunity to try from my very kind doctor. It's called Cialis. And intimacy, if you want to have sex, MS should not be a barrier to having sex because you cannot get an erection. But you need to face into it. You need to talk to people like your doctor, and it'll go no further. If you don't let MS put you off having sex.
The GPs, the family doctors, they know, they understand. They may have the same problem, but they'll keep it your news to yourself. It can be delivered to you discreetly, and then you can deliver very indiscreetly to your partner.
Yes, the whooping and the cheering that's going to ring out across the continents, I'm sure, as a result of this video will be phenomenal. Mark, I really appreciate you coming on the msguide.com and sharing your views and experiences with us on a topic which should be discussed more. So thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Have a lovely day. Take care.